Says good plan. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Mark. And then we can have a bit of a chat, can't we? Right. What I've done so far, because you might have missed all of this, because I didn't know whether I was talking to myself or whether I was talking to you guys, is that I stitched the two pocket pieces together. All right. So I've stitched the calico and the main fabric, so the lining and the main fabric, and I've stitched them together 1/4 inch all the way along the length. And it's a long piece. It's about 32.5 inches, isn't it? It's a long piece, but you need that because the pockets are gathered, and they're gathered on the bottom as well. If I lift that up, you'll be able to see that it's gathered on the bottom as well. So that's all I've done. It's right sides together. I've put those pieces together and I've pressed it really well. Okay. The next thing I did was I got the two channel pieces that take the ribbon at the top of the Moppy bag, and all I've done is pressed over 1/4 inch both sides. Hopefully you can see that. And I've stitched, so I've turned each short end over and stitched along there. Just hold it down. I haven't done 1/4 inch and then another 1/4 inch. I've just done one, so you've got a raw edge there. If you folded over 1/4 inch and then 1/4 inch again, you would shorten your channel a little bit too much, and it's perfect as it is. So it's just 1/4 inch, and so the next thing we're going to do is stitch those on there. But what I wanted to show you is this. This is the main bag, okay? Another nice little bit of tilde. It's got the H250 on the back of it, so it's nice and stabilised. So I folded it into quarters again. I want you to see this. So I folded it in half, and then I folded it again, and I've that's more than 1/4 inch, but I've left that 1/4 inch there because that is the side seam to the bag, okay? And all you're going to do is, I've pressed it so I've got a nice crease, but you could cut a notch. So cut a notch in one fold, and then cut a notch in what will be in effect the centre fold. Do the same on the other end. So you're cutting through all the layers of fabric, except for this. You don't need to cut that bit, and then you're just cutting that bit there. Okay, so when we open it up, and you'll see this in the pattern, do you see you've got notches? You've got 1, 2, 3 notches, which is perfect. So in the actual pattern, it tells you to put the channels, let me just check, 2 1/4 inches from the top of the bag. So if you get your ruler or whatever you want to use, and I hope you can see this. Let me know if you can't see it very well. Let's see. I don't know if I can come out any more. Maybe not. Okay, perhaps I'll go with this one here. Okay, that's not too bad, is it? So there's my notch there, can you see? And that is the line there, and the pocket will be lined up with this. Where I stitch the pocket will be lined up with this, and there's the notch at the end there. Okay, so at this moment in time, it doesn't matter if this is the top or the bottom, unless you've got directional fabric, then of course it matters. So it's I think it says 2 1/4 inches, wasn't it, that this channel needs to be put down. Now look, you're going to stitch this down. So you're going to stitch either side, so it makes it really nice and neat along the top and along the bottom. But look, can you see now why I folded these in half, and I've got a lovely crease line. So when I folded the edges over ready for top stitching, I also folded them in half and I pressed there. And now all I'm going to do is line that up with the crease mark that I've already made, and then all I'm going to do is measure. Now I have to pin because we're not close enough to the edge to use our quilting clips. So it's 2 1/4 inches from the top. I think that's where the top of the channel goes. So if I do that, there's ever such a good bit of measuring that is. And then again, just keep it nice and parallel to the top here, and again just pin it, or you could just just go for it. You don't have to pin it at all if you don't want to. But it keeps everything pretty straight. And then just move it along, and then you're just going to pin in the middle there. And like I say, these pieces here will be stitched down shortly. So we'll just put that down there like that, and I'll straighten those up as we go along. So that's the first one put down. So then obviously we've got to do the second one. So again, I've got a crease line here. Well, that's lovely to see. And then I've got a crease line on my channel. So once again, I've got a little notch here as well, but I'm using my crease lines. I found them to be really effective. So again, I'm just moving that down, and that'll do fine there. So it's not an exact science, it's just making sure that you've got it just about equal on both sides. So there we are, put the first pin in there, bringing that across, and I mean, you could top stitch these before you actually top stitch them down, if you see what I mean. And then you should have a little gap there, look, got a nice little gap there. And then along the top there, again, you're just going to, I'm sorry my hand is in the way, just pop a pin in there, and now you're good to go. So what we're going to do now is top stitch both sides, top and bottom. Okay, we're going to pop that under the machine. Really, so it's really easy to do. I'm just going to turn my iron off. It's just following those steps, and I think the only thing that's probably might be of concern is the actual doing the stabilizer. You know, when you get to the stabilizer bit, you're probably wondering how that works, but it does work out fine. So what you need is a locking stitch at the end. Take your pins out as you go, and one day what we'll do is we'll make a pin sort of, it's like a pin caddy, I suppose, that sits around your machine, so when you take the pins off as you go along, you can pop them into your caddy. It's just sort of sits here. It's a lovely little project actually, and we'll make one of those. So when we come to the end, just do another locking stitch again, because that's going to take a little bit of strain. Take our pin out for the next one, and we'll just carry along. It doesn't matter that you've got another row, you know, that row of stitching is continuous, because when you put your ribbon in, there's no way you're going to see that. So there we are. So we'll just take the pins out as we go. There we go. So this is your casing to put your ribbon in. And then what we'll do is we've done one side, and then we'll go down the other. And let's keep it so the least amount of fabric is on the machine. There we go. And down the other side. So hopefully you're following that and it all seems fairly clear. If you find as you're machining this, the channels slightly twist a little bit, if you have got a walking foot, that's a good time to use it. So I think we're still going strong, aren't we? Which is good. So just go straight on to the next one. And like I say, I mean, I've just nearly pulled it away there, but you can just continue stitching because you're not going to see that once it's all gathered up. But the last thing you look at, you'll be looking at all the lovely things you're going to put inside it. There we go. So it's a little bit twisted, but speed is of the essence. And I'm a bit close to my edge, I must admit. I'm not very happy with that, but we'll see how we go. So there's the channels in, and I'll just get rid of a few bits and pieces here. Some threads at the beginning and the end. There we go, keep it nice and neat. Okay, so that's the channels put on, that's all done. So now we've got the pocket to do. We've got to put the elastic on, and we've got to attach the pocket to the actual main bag. Okay, so I've got some elastic lurking around here somewhere, and it's here. There we go. And I think in the instructions it says you want 22 inches. Okay, so I'll measure on my mat 22 inches. There we go. And so what you're going to do now is do you remember when we folded it in half, we folded it in half again, we've got crease lines and we've got notches as well. So what I want you to do now is on the wrong side, so on the what is the calico side, I want you to pin, and to be honest, I like the moppy effect, so I kind of brought it down a little bit. I think it's about 1/4 of an inch. I'm just looking at the one I made. It's about 1/4 of an inch, so we'll just take it down. So you're going to pin, I'll show you, on that raw edge. So that's the first one. And then I'm going to pin at the other end. Okay, and it's about 1/4 of an inch down, and then you get that nice ruffled look. So then what I'm going to do is I've got one in the middle, so I'm going to fold the elastic in half and get my halfway point and pop that on that crease line. So you're working on the folded edge. I'll show you in a sec. So you're working on the folded edge. The raw edges are what you're going to stitch to the bottom of the bag. And then, let me show you this way. So we've got the two ends and the middle attached. So I want you to stretch it, and then I want you to pin, which I'm thinking I need a third hand now, a pin right where that crease is or where the notch is at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure approximately 1/4 of the way, and then I'm going to pin it. To be honest, it's as long as you're getting gathers on all three pockets, then you're fine. And these are not the sharpest pins. I thought they were when I first got them, and they're not really. So again, you might want a third hand just to stretch that out and pin it right in the middle. I could do it. It's moved a bit. You could get somebody to help. Get the dog to put its paw just there, or the cat. So that's the elastic put in place. So all we're going to do is pop it under the machine, and as we stitch, so we stretch. Okay, it's not difficult. If you've ever, now you could use a zigzag if you want. Let me just see what I did on mine. Let's see. No, I just did a straight stitch, but you could do a zigzag if you want. So you literally anchor that first one down. So I'll just take my pin out. This is quite thick elastic. 1/4 of an inch elastic is best. And just anchor it down. So let's just make sure you can see. Yeah, I think you're okay like that. I mean, I don't think you're missing anything from the side view. Every time you stop, it's good to have your needle down, because that's holding the fabric and the elastic at the same time. So I'm lucky I've got a needle down facility. If you haven't, just anchor your needle down, and then what you're going to do is you're going to pull that elastic like that, and you're going to hold it, and you're just going to stitch. And as you stitch, so it will gather. Sounds like a story. And as you stitch, so will it gather. And again, get to the next pin, and you're stretching it out. You might want to hold this, whatever is convenient for you. So pull that elastic. I've gone a bit wriggly. And just attach it. Just that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. Nothing spectacular about this. But you might, like I say, you might want to hold it, because you're pulling it here. So you don't want the whole thing to slide. Because you're pulling it, you might be pulling it away from you, and you actually want it to go pull it towards you, but actually, yeah, you could end up pulling it away from you. Anyway. So just help it along. talking gibberish. I really am talking gibberish. So just come up to that side seam again, anchor it down, and there we go. So, gosh, are we still going? Can't believe that. So there we are. So there's our elastic actually put onto the top of the pocket, okay? If I stretch it out, see how good that 22 inches of elastic is? And I think the pocket is something like 32, so there's a difference of 10 inches. But it works, doesn't it? And it looks really pretty on the fabric side. So now what you're going to do is you're going to pin that in place onto your main piece of fabric, okay? So your channels are at the top, so your pocket obviously goes down the bottom there. Now, you've already got those notches. So can you see this is like all repetition of you either use the folds or you use the notches. But again, so if I've got a notch here, I've got a notch there, and I know they go together, so I'm going to pin that. You'll find, naturally, that the, yeah, that's right, is that the pockets are too big for your main fabric. And again, that's intentional because you're going to pleat it or you're going to gather it, whatever you, I mean, I just pleated it. You're not going to see it because it's on the bottom of the bag. But you find your own way of doing this. I mean, as I do it, I'll get a camera in and you'll see what I do. But I kind of just pleat it as I go. You might not be brave enough to do that. Then again, you might think, oh, this is super easy. So I'll want to see loads made. But I certainly, I mean, the Moppy bag really got a great reaction from you guys when you first saw it. I think you could see the potential, and I think you could see how you would use it in your craft room, which is great, isn't it? So look, all I'm doing is pinning the whole thing together. So even up the sides of the bag, and I'll show you in a sec what I've done. Okay, oops, there we go. So I've pinned it all the way along the two sides and the bottom. So when I stitch it, I'm going to stitch from this side down and across the bottom, okay? And then we'll use the creases to actually then stitch up the pocket so you then get separate pockets, okay? So let's get the machine in again. And we'll see if we can get a camera in here so you can see what I'm doing. This is not bad. So let's just bring it in a bit closer. That's not bad, guys, is it? So I'm going to start at the side of the pocket. Just take my pin out. And what you're doing is it's a stay stitch, really, or it is a top stitch, stay stitch. But you're just bringing those two fabrics, those layers together. And so it's not 1/4 of an inch. It's probably more 1/8 of an inch. But look, I'm just coming down to the corner there. And you can see when we get to it, so I've got all of this fabric here because that's where my next pin is there. Look, there's my notch just there, and you see that notch just there. Hopefully you can see it. I can't see it very well on my monitor, but it's very dusty, my monitor. But that's where all the pocket and everything is correctly placed. So all of this needs to be somehow gathered, pleated, whatever you like, but I just kind of pleat it every couple of inch, well, an inch or so, and I might fold over 1/4 of an inch, something like that. I'm not measuring, I am being careful, but I'm not, so I don't want a great big pleat right halfway through, but there we are. So that's all I'm doing. If you go over the 1/4 of an inch, you mustn't worry about that either. And again, we've just gone past our notch, so you can see how that's looking now. Because by the time you put it all together, you're not going to see a lot of this. Well, you'll see it, but it's not essential. It's purely a means to an end. So you could gather it and be super neat and work it all out exactly, but I found that the pleats work just as well. So just sort of go with the flow. So I'm coming up now to my middle notch, So that's just a little pleat I'm putting in there, and then another little pleat. So you can see I've got all of this fabric to go into that small space. And if you're not confident enough, then pre-pin this, but I'm just kind of pleating it as I go. I'm trying to keep all the pleats going the same way, but again, it's not crucial. It's just that's just my neatness coming out. So there we are, I'm just coming up to the next little section. So there's the pin there for my next section. So I'm coming up to there. Again, pull the pin out. Don't ever stitch over pins, guys. I had one go in my eye, broken years ago, and it's never, that feeling has never left me. So just like I say, just pleat this as you go, and it tells you in the instructions that's all you need to do, either gather or pleat. So that's my last little pleat done, and I'm just coming up to that bottom corner again, and then I'm coming up the side. So all that bottom bit is done, and now I'm coming up the side of the bag. Try and make sure that all your layers are caught as well. There we go. And even though it's a top stitch, give it a nice little back stitch just to hold everything in place. So that's that little section done. Let's see, that's it. So we've got our pockets almost in place. We've got it attached to the bottom and the sides. We've got that all pleated there. So the next part is to stitch from the raw edges up to the fold. So we're going to stitch from, excuse me, from here up to here, okay? Because you know when you start off that you've got it lined up perfectly. So we'll go for the one in the middle first. So I've gone straight to the notch that's in the middle. Obviously the fabrics are joined together there, so I know that it's perfect. But what I'm looking for now are the creases. You remember we did the folding and the pressing. So I've got a crease going all the way up my bag here, but I've also got a crease going up my pocket, and I'm actually lining those up, and that's all I'm doing, nothing technical. If you want to pin it, pin it. Again, it won't take a quilting clip because we're too far into the fabric. So again, do a lovely back stitch there to lock it, to hold it in place, and then pull it out. You need to trim all these threads. Right, so find your other notch, which is there. And if you're not sure, you'll have notches here, won't you? Notches at the top and your crease line as well. So you'll know roughly where you are. So again, nice little back stitch. I find my crease, line it all up, and go from the bottom up to the top. It's quite important that you do that, because if you do it the other way round, you might end up with a big pleat at the bottom where you didn't quite get it lined up nicely. So the last one here is this one. Again, go from the bottom to the top, nice little lock. Line up your creases, so you've got the crease on the pocket that you made and the crease on the bag, and that's your guide. So just get all that fabric out of the way. And to the top. Hopefully I don't run out of bobbin. No. And again, a nice locking stitch, because that might take a little bit of pressure from all the goodies you're going to put inside your bag. There we go. Let's get that out of the way. So now I'm going to spend just a moment just to get rid of all these bits of thread. So the next part is to put the base on the actual bag. Now I'm not going to join my side seams together, because depending on your stitching, how you put this together, I've found over years of experience that sometimes our circles don't meet the perfect side seam. Doesn't matter how well you've measured. It could be that your seam allowances are not quite what they should be, but I find it easier for me to actually put the base on with the sides open, if you like. So what I do is, and it shows this on the instructions, that I actually start stitching. So when I get the base, I can find the base. This is the base? Yes. And I haven't put any stabiliser on this yet, okay? So when I start putting this onto the base, when I put the two together, just make sure I get the right edge. Yes. A minute, think. This edge I'm doing. Yeah, I had to think there. This one. Goodness me. So I start about 1.5 inches in, so about there. So I don't start stitching here, right on the edge. Okay, I start stitching about 1.5 inches in. And by the time I get all the way around, I'll be able to see whether those two seams are going to meet up perfectly or whether they need adjusting. And like I say, all depends on whether, if my 1/4 inch was super accurate, not only on my main bag, but also the circle as well, life's not perfect, is it? Let's face it. Then it would be fine. But just allowing for us to be a little bit over 1/4 inch, that sort of thing. So you're starting about 1.5 inches from the end, and you start going around your circle. And put your straight edge onto your circle, okay? I found that to be the easiest way. So the other thing you can do is actually follow, the line we just did, the stitching we just did, where we did the pocket sides, bottom and up. So that bottom bit of stitching, that's what you're looking at now. So you could go just above that. So the raw edge is on my right, so the stitching line is obviously on the right hand side of the fabric as well. Just go on the left hand side of that stitch line. That way you'll never see the stitches that you've just stitched. So all you're going to do is follow that around. So the straight edge, this is my personal preference, the straight edge is being stitched onto the circle. I'm hoping that I'm not stretching anything. I'm just about sticking to my 1/4 inch. But you can see when we've done this what I've done, and as I come round to that last couple of inches or so, I'll take it off the machine and I'll show you on the side camera what I mean about bringing those two side seams together. I find it much easier than fitting. It's like fitting on the perfect glove if you've already stitched those side seams. And you know what? Sometimes life is too short for getting the perfect glove and hand match. Let's put it that way. So I'm just coming round now. Let's get some of this bulk out of the way. And using the H250 is great because it gives the bag a little bit of structure, but not too much. If you want to use soft wadding, use soft wadding. It's absolutely fine. So, are we getting there? Nearly. Oh yeah. And the other thing is, be careful that you don't stretch that circle. It would be really easy to pull on it and stretch it. If you do that, none of it will fit. So, just do this last little bit. Hope I haven't stretched the circle. Don't think I am. And again, so let's just get to about here. Okay, now I've left about 1.25 inches, so I haven't gone all the way. Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to take you to the side camera so you can see. Here we go. So I want you to have a look. I just had this moment, I thought, have I stitched the right size? Yes, I have. So this is where I started here, okay? And I left about, well, it's about 1.5 inches, isn't it? And this is where I just finished here. And that's about 1.5 inches as well, maybe a little bit. In fact, that's the first one, and that's where I finished, because I'm stitching straight onto the circle. So you can see I've got quite a bit of a gap. But you've got enough of a circle there that you can bring those edges together, and you can judge how much that you've got to trim away, okay? Now don't worry that your pockets might be a little bit out. That's totally not important. But what we're doing here is just fitting our straight piece to our circle, and for me that takes all the stress out of it, okay? So I can see that if I did my seam around about here, let's just pin those together. Let me do that and then we'll have a little look. We can trim all that away. So let's just pop a pin in there. So we're bringing those two side seams together now. Can you see? That's the two side seams. There's the pockets in there. And so if I spread my circle out, can you see how that's going to fit perfectly now once I stitch that seam together there? So the next bit is for me to stitch that seam. All right, so I'm going to go up the side of my main bag, and then I'll finish off my circle here. And you do exactly the same. You do exactly the same for the lining. Now, because my channels are really close to the edge here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be guided by them. So I'm going to start here, but I'm going to taper off a little bit because I don't want to interfere with my channels. So I'm just sort of bearing that in mind. So I'm going to start at the top and stitch from the top. And like I say, just keep an eye on those channels. You don't want to stitch those closed. And if you feel you're a bit close to the edge, then just readjust them slightly. So now what I'm doing is tucking my pockets in, making sure that all those pleats are out of the way. And now I'm just coming down the side, right down to the bottom there. There's quite a bit of bulk. So we're just coming down and nice strong stitch. There we go. And I'll use my scissors and I'll just trim that little bit away. Not that it matters because that's going to be inside the bag, but it makes it look neat. There we go. So I've trimmed that away. That's my side done. So now I'm going to finish off that circle. So I'm going to pop it under the machine just where I left off. Needle down, and then you can readjust things on your machine. There we go. And just get that circle correctly positioned. I think that'll be fine. There. So now I've gone up, I've completed that circle, and I've got that whole circle. Oh, I just caught a little bit of it, but I'll just ignore it for the moment. That's what I'm saying about making sure everything is aligned and everything is straight. I'm kind of wanting to undo that. I really do. Let's just quickly do that. And it's just readjusting, putting your needle in when you're confident that everything is lined up, and then you haven't done what I've just done, which is I've just pleated the smallest amount, and that's because I'm doing this in a hurry. So let's do that. I think that's not a bad job. It's just one more stitch. There, that'll do. So I'll just whiz that under the machine just so it's caught. Smashing. Lovely. Okay, so really that's the main part of the bag done. If we turn it through, because we've still got to put the stabiliser on and the wadding. Now you don't have to do the wadding if you don't want to. So don't forget, you know when you cut the pattern out, so the first circle that you cut, the outer circle, is the bag base, okay? The actual dotted line, which you just see a little bit here, the dotted line is the stabiliser, okay? The stabiliser and the wadding. I find it much easier to put this in afterwards, so you're not stitching through all of the, because this is like cardboard, and very difficult to manipulate, and because I've got the wadding and the stabiliser together, it's quite tricky, so I cut it down by a good 1/4 of an inch, and that'll just sit in the base of the bag, and I find that much easier to work with. So look, there we are. So there's the base of the bag and the main part of the bag done. Doesn't look too bad, does it? So now all we need to do is, at this stage, I can put that stabiliser in there. Now, it has a glue side and it has a non-glue side. Now, with the non-glue side, I have attached my wadding. So the glue side is going on the right at the bottom of the bag. Now, all I'm going to do is pop my little mini iron in there. What you could do is when it's turned the other way around, so it's when it's wrong side facing out, you could attach it then, okay, and then turn the bag through. But because I've got a little mini iron, I'm going to let's just get my mat. I'm going to pop it in here, and I can pop my iron in there as well, and that just fits in there right in the bottom beautifully. And it's really, really, here we go, let's just push that down there. It really does stick really well. It really does make a really good job. So let's just alter that slightly. There we go. And wriggle it around till it's exactly where you want it to be, which I think, once that's stuck, that'll be fine. So you could go in from this side because that's where the glue is. So we could do it that way. So you could pop your iron on there and glue it that way. Just make sure the iron's on. And that's already stuck. Or if you're really brave, I've got wadding in here, but it is a natural wadding, she says. You can pop your iron in there and go in on the inside. It's entirely up to you. Or you could put a sort of piece of calico there to protect it. But needless to say, once you iron that in place, you're not going to feel that either. It's just absolutely fine. And the heat of the iron. And again, if you've got one of those, which I have somewhere, one of those hams, use one of those. And you'll find it's really, really easy to attach. There we go. I'm making a piece there of it, but you'll do it much better than me. So there's our base pretty much in place. So now all we've got to do is just repeat that for the lining. And for the lining is just the calico. So again, oh, there's my bit of last I was looking for. So again, oh, and I've got the little bag to put inside. I thought that was quite a nice touch, doing the little bag, which just kind of weighs it down. I quite like that idea. So this time we're just putting the lining to the base, and again, just taking your time, put the straight edge onto the circle. And don't ever be worried about doing this because it will go, it will. You just take your time, do a little bit at a time. I do about 1 inch, then I readjust. I kind of pull that circle round just to, it's almost like you're straightening the circle. And because this is the lining, it's not so imperative that it's as accurate, which maybe I shouldn't say that. You want the outside to look nice. So there we are. Ooh, a little bit wriggly there. So the same principles apply. We're not going to stitch that side seam until I'm pretty confident that my 2 side edges meet, and so you can adjust the seam allowance. And that's done intentionally. Don't think that you've gone wrong. Don't think that. So I think we're nearly there. There we go. Let's just whiz that. So let's just take that out. So there's my my side seams there, look, still loose, and I've got about 1 inch of the circle to stitch. So all I do is offer those side seams up together, pinch it where I think I need to stitch the seam, and to be honest, that's near as 1/4 inch, maybe just a wee bit over. So now I can stitch my side seam. Don't forget to leave a gap for turning. That was a near thing. So let's just do that. Done that before now. You. And a good gap because these are big. This is a big piece. Again, nice locking stitch. Use your scissors to cut your threads if you've jumped across like I've done. So there's my turning gap there. So now I've done the side seam, I'm going to complete the circle, just stitching that last inch. And to be honest, that doesn't matter whether you're going on the circle side or the straight side. And it's just a case of stitching it around and closing up the gap, which I've done. Okay, so now what we've got to do is actually stitch these together, which is super easy. I need to put my stabiliser in the bottom, so again I'll do that now. Let's make sure the iron's still on. And again, like I say, don't be worried. So you've got 2 layers of stabiliser here, so it's really, really strong. And again, let me just think, yeah, I'm doing this the right way. And it's it kind of shines a little bit. So all I'm going to do is pop that on there, and it really does stick well. It's fantastic. If you've tried this before making this bag, you'll know that it's really strong. So I'm just going to trim this down just a wee bit. So my 1/4 of an inch is probably very generous. There we go. Oops, there we go, that'll be fine. It's just to give it rigidity. Again, glue side down. If you do it the other way, it just sticks to your iron. So that's now down. Give it a little press, and it does glue. It does adhere really, really quickly. Just hold your iron on there. She says, "Was it switched on?" Yes. Come on, there we go. Oh yes, that's done now. That's lovely. And if you have creased your lining, then you could spend a moment just readjusting that and pressing that and make it nice and neat. Let's not worry about that. So we're there. We're almost there. You can see I just need to get that. But by the time I finish this and I've given another press and I put my ham in there and pressed that, it'll all be put together. And to be honest, it's not going anywhere. So now we're going to put right sides together. So just normal. You're going to pop the bag inside the lining. So your right sides together. Match up those side seams. So just match up. This is where you can get your quilting clips out. This is where you know if your cutting was good, because they'll either meet or they won't. If they don't meet, don't worry. Please don't worry. I'm going to take this off. So now we're just going to stitch all the way around the top. Yeah, around the top. We've left our turning gap. So now it's the stitching around the top. Do you think you'll be making one of these? Do you think it's achievable for you? Seriously? Maybe you do need smaller projects, and I'll make sure I do that in the future. But I think once you see, and look, you can see I need to iron that a little bit. Once you see it put together, it doesn't look half so complicated, does it? I don't think so anyway. Maybe that's just me. So there we are, and that's not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. So we can finish this off. I think, which is part 2. We haven't done it in an hour, so I'm really pleased, because I know some of our projects have taken a while. That meets perfectly, which means I cut it beautifully. It's not always the case. Apart from the turning gap, I don't need this anymore, so let's pop that down there. So obviously so you can see now why you would need to leave a big turning gap, because this is a big bulky bag now. There's lots of layers, there's lots of stabiliser. This stabiliser is a monkey, it really is, to get through. Especially because it's not all stuck down, but that's because I'm hurrying. I'd like to think you'll take a lot more time over it. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of layers to come through that hole. So just take your time, don't rush. Just half of the making is all of this, isn't it? The process of sort of making it and then seeing how it's transformed. And I'm just going to open this up a little bit more. And there's no harm in that either. Gosh, the amount of times I've done that. Because you think 4 inches should be enough to turn, but sometimes it's not. Because of the bulk. There we go. And like I say, that stabiliser is a monkey. But it does a really good job. Supposedly. Right. Oh, phew. That's was like a baby being born then. There's a lot of struggling, and then, oh, here he comes into the world. So obviously now all of this gets popped inside the bag. Here we go. And so that lovely stiff bottom goes in there. And of course what you can do is top stitch. I think I top stitch mine. It looks beautiful. But just for time, let's not worry too much about that. And you'll be able to see how your channels have come together and how they look. I'm actually inclined to give that a little press because we have got a bit of time. So let's get my board, my pad. Let's clear the decks a bit. Switch my iron on. Oh, the pellets. Is that Joan? Ah, Joan. I use these. Okay, you can see that. Okay, I use these. They're for craft and doll making. I got them from Amazon. They're by Darice, D-A-R-I-C-E, and they are called plastic pellets, or it says bag of bean bag fill. Well, you wouldn't fill a bean bag with this, would you? But they're quite weighty. Now I know Diana does something different, and I know plastics aren't really very good at the moment, are they? But I think of it this way: those pellets are always going to be in this little bag, so it's kind of like recycling, isn't it? Or is that wrong? But as long as you're using something weighty, but don't use anything. Don't use food stuff. Don't use rice. See what you can find. I'll tell you all. Wow. Fish tank grit. That's a good one. Somebody on here suggested, it might have been Diana actually, but somebody mentioned fish tank grit. Okay. Obviously, it doesn't matter about what colour. But that's a really good thing because obviously it's a sustainable product, isn't it? And to be honest, I looked at fish tank grit. I'm sorry, I'm I'll get my teeth in. I'm slurring my speech. So I just need my safety pin now. Oh, I need to make the little pad. I've forgotten about that. Oh, where's my... Oh, here it is. Sorry guys if I'm making a noise. Okay, let's pop that back. So I've got a nice safety pin here. I've cut my ribbon in half. These came wrapped up with my new fabrics I bought yesterday or the day before. And it's such a waste, isn't it? I mean, well, it's not a waste because we always find use for it. So look, what you're going to do, you've got two channels and you've got openings both ends. So you're going in one end and you're going to feed it all the way through. Oh, I didn't iron that very well. Anyway, you're going to iron, you're going to go all the way through. So I'm just working my way around. And when I come to the little gap, I'm just going to keep on going, right? So look, I don't know if you can see it, but there's my pin just there. So that I'm still going through. And I'm going to come out where I started. Now I know I haven't stitched my turning gap. You can do that another day. I can glue it, can't I, later. So what you don't want to do is lose your end. So just keep your eye on it. In fact, it's better to have it too long than too short. So I'm just feeding that around and coming out the other side. Okay, taking my pin out. There we go. And while it's still safe, knot those ends. So this is where, if you wanted to put some beads on here, that would be a really nice touch, wouldn't it? To put some beads on there. And then as long as you can open your bag right up, then you're good to go. So then we're going to repeat that on the other side. So you know we started here, we're going to start this side now. It doesn't matter whether you go clockwise or anti-clockwise, you just feed it all the way through. And obviously the other ribbon is there, but it's not going to move, it's not going to go anywhere, because first of all you've knotted it and it's joined up. That's why we knot it straight away, because the pressure of me pushing that second one through, it would possibly dislodge the first one. So like I say, just knot it, keep an eye on it, and just feed it through. There we go, nearly there. Just keep going. And because the channel is nice, is a nice size, it works out to about 3/4 of an inch, doesn't it? You could put piping cord in here, no bother, or really big, gorgeous ribbons like the mini bag. So there we are. Pulled that through, and normally I would neaten this off. I'd never leave frayed edges like that. I just want to finish that little bit, and then we'll put the weight inside as well. So there we are. So that's both ends. So you can see I'll trim this off, I'll make it nice and neat. But when I pull the knots, it closes the bag up. So it's a nice effect, isn't it? And when we compare the two, absolutely identical. Like I say, I'll get my iron in there now. And really give that a good press. And that'll press all the layers together. And also stitch the turning gap. I think that looks okay. So, 2 circles. Now this is where I should have brought a funnel up with me, but we'll do our best. So a funnel is really good. I'm sorry about the noise. A funnel is really good because it controls the little pellets going in, and also the same with the grit. So I'm using calico. You can use a really pretty fabric, makes no difference. Now these 2 circles are the same size circles as the interfacing, all right? So they're going to come out even smaller than the bottom of the bag, if you like. They're going to fit really snugly in there. And the idea of the pellets, and you don't have to do it, is that it weights the whole thing down and makes it substantial. I mean, that's not going to fall over, but if you had something in it this side, it might tip a little bit. So it's to keep it upright, it's to keep it stable. It feels a substantial bag when you lift it up, makes all the difference. So we've stitched the whole thing. And this is what I could have done with my seam unripper. So I've gone all the way around, no turning gap, but don't panic. I'm going to actually cut right in the centre. So I'll do it, then I'll show you. So there we go. So I've cut. Let me get my fingers in there. There we are. I've cut right through the centre of that. Can you see? So now I can turn this. Snip this if you want to, but it is only a weight. It's not anything that anybody else is going to see. Just ease that circle out. Make it nice and neat if you wish. Give it a press. Okay, so now we've turned it right side through. And so now what you're going to do is fill it with beans, with pellets, whatever. So all I'm going to do is just snip the corner off. I'm going to make a really small hole. And I think that's quite a small hole. And I'm going to pour those pellets into the pad, into the circle that we've made. Yeah, I could do with a bigger hole. So the last time I did this, what did I do with you? They went all over the place. Honestly, I was picking up pellets for weeks. And I'd got the Dyson up here and I Dysoned. And I still was picking up pellets. So, so just get them in. This is where you need a funnel, guys. So just get in as many as you dare. I've had them go all over the floor. So see how you go. Let's put them upright. There we go. Oh, let's not put those in. So how do we think? That's not too bad. I could probably do with a bit more. and basically you're not going to see this because you're going to stitch the two raw edges together and just literally just you know, nothing fancy, and you're going to just close the gap, and that's going to go in the bottom of your bag. That's it, we've got it now. That's much better. Woo! That's really good. They've gone all over the floor. Right, so you can see it's quite weighty, but all I'm going to do is pinch those two raw edges together, and I'm literally going to stick it under the machine and machine it, because that raw edge seam will go on the lining, if you like, on the lining side. So make sure you stitch the whole close really well, because otherwise the pellets will go everywhere, or whatever you decide to use. Make sure that they're not anywhere near your needle. There's a little one there, just trying to scoot out. There we are, that's it. I'm away now. Just keep those pellets away from your needle. They're wanting to escape. Right, I'm just going to do it. You don't want them to go into your machine. Right, I'm happy. I'm happy. I think we're there, guys. You just check. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, that's all. Did you hear them? So look, I've stitched that together. Obviously cut your threads, make it nice and neat. If you want to make a better job of it, then please do so. But that now just goes like that into the bottom of the bag. And push it down. There we go. And that's now perfectly in place. So that is keeping my lovely Moppy bag from tipping over. And it's, when you pick it up, it's got a little bit of weight to it. Feels substantial. So there we are. There is the Moppy bag. I hope you enjoyed it. And I think we did it in one hit, pretty much, apart from that first bit, with no more interruptions. I'm still going strong, aren't I? Well, obviously I've stopped now, but yeah, I'm even on the right camera. You can hear me. I don't believe it. We've done it, folks. Never mind. Who needs fibre? Okay. So I'm going to bring my pooter in now. We'll have a chat for a minute. Let's have a look. So, is there any questions? So let's just have a quick look through this again. Oh, hi Tricia. So yay, but that was a long time ago, so hopefully you're still here watching. We've still got some ladies watching, so that's good. And let's just see if Susie, the sound is here, and I always say to you guys that I can't do anything about that, because at the moment this is what my setup is. And also that John is working on getting a camera and making it a little bit better, and hopefully I can wear a microphone, and that obviously would be a lot better. But until that time, I rely on my iPad Pro to pick up the microphone. So if I'm talking this way, it won't be as clear as if I'm talking that way. And I know that makes a difference, and I do apologise, but unfortunately that is the nature of the beast. Adol says the videos are a great help. I hope they are. I'm hoping that maybe what we'll do is we'll do a proper professional video, if you like, and it'll be clearer, and I won't be stumbling and bumbling over my words, because I'll have a bit of a sort of plan, if you like. So yes, everybody's agreeing with that, so that's good. We need our own stabiliser, or the main bags. Did we need our own stabiliser, or the main bag pieces? I've not cut it yet. So Susie, the stabiliser was the little packs that I sent out. I sent about 40 out, so I don't know if you were one of those. But the stabiliser, the really stiff stabiliser that I sent you, I'm just trying to think of the name of it, S520. It's incredibly stiff, it's like card. And you cut your stabiliser on the dotted line. And I think it does, if it doesn't, yes, it actually says on the pattern piece, it says cut 2 on the dotted line from the stiff stabiliser and cut 2 on the dotted line for the weighted pad. So it does tell you on the pattern what you need to cut, how many, and what from. So hopefully that's of help. Concerned it doubles your workload, but happy with your plan. It doesn't really, Christine, because these, if we have just a chat for sort of like half an hour, that's nice and relaxed, isn't it? I'm under no pressure to create anything and make it right for you. It's just a case of enjoying everybody's company and chatting about what we've been doing for half an hour or so. So the seam allowance is always 1/4 inch. I very rarely say it, but it's always 1/4 inch. If it had to be any more than that, I would tell you. And to be honest, I don't measure it. I do have a 1/4 inch foot, but I don't religiously stick to that. If somebody examined my seams, they'd say, well, there's no way they're like 5/8 of an inch or 6/8 of an inch or whatever it is, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Oh, you've got terrible thunder and lightning. Well, it's absolutely pouring down here. It's now very dark. What time is it? It's 8:30 on a Friday evening. So it's very dark here, and it's absolutely pouring down with rain. I'm trying to get it so you can hear me better. So we've had lots of people join us through the hour, so that was lovely. Thank you very much for that. You're going to use some of your Tilda as well, Anne. It looks good, doesn't it? I will make one. That's from Ines. Already know which fabrics I will use. I love a challenge. This is from Karen. So more, please. Oh, I see. You like the little bit, perhaps more the difficult ones. Well, not difficult, but different processes, if you like. We haven't repeated ourselves very much, have we, with some of the projects? Joan says, oh yes, she'd love to make it. Not sure what you mean about pellets though, but I think we've talked about that. Oh, my mum has joined. I don't know if she's still with us. Hello, mum, if you're still there. That's Lynn Curtis. Susan says she's definitely going to give it a go, especially with a video to refer to. That's the thing, isn't it? But actually, when you're on the Facebook page, if you go to videos or photos and videos, or I think it's albums as well, you can look at on the side. All the Facebook lives that we've ever done are there. So you never lose a Facebook live. They don't just disappear. They always stay on the Facebook page. So they're always there to refer to. Seam allowances, oh yeah, I said 1/4 inch. Joan says, going to ask about the round stones you use in the decorative jar. That makes sense. Yes, that sort of thing, as long as it kind of gives it a bit of a weight. Thank you, Joan. Joan says it's so cute. Rosemary says that was brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary. You're very kind. Thank you, Helen, as well for that. Christmas projects, Liz. Okay, so I've given you one little tease. You may have lost the connection. This is just a mock-up, okay? So this is a mock-up. This is not the actual finished project. Don't think, oh, we're going to make a house. No, it's going to be much more than that. But it's you're going to make a few of these. I'm not going to tell you because it'll spoil it. We've only got another couple of weeks. But this is like a mock-up that I did the other day. And the chimney it's a loop, so you can hang it maybe like bunting, or you can hang it from your tree. So you've got a pattern for 2 houses. This is the funky house, and then you've got a mushroom house. So you can choose between the two. None of this is done with free motion, so please don't start to panic. None of it's been done with free motion. It's all done with my regular foot on my machine. I put some gold thread on there. I was kind of experimenting with this. I made this with my grandson on Wednesday. But the actual houses that you're going to make are a bit bigger. They're going to be about this size. So everything will be a lot bigger. But I think you'll understand perhaps the potential. I also said to you about the fact that I shall be doing Christmas projects in September, but all of these can be created any time of year. So although these are like funky houses, they could also be like funky beach huts. Okay, now you're getting there. So the potential is massive, and like I say, you're going to get 2 different sort of house patterns, and they're all done. I just need to get the sizing to be just right for me. I'll tell you what you need a week before, because you might want to get 1 or 2 bits, I have to say. I've got some gorgeous fabrics. These are Lynette Anderson fabrics. I just bought a ton, but only I quite like the colours for this particular project. The other project, I'm using lots of Liberty fabric. You don't need to get as much as I've done, but those are the colours I'm using for the second project. Gorgeous. Those are Liberty. I have got something that I've mocked up. I don't know if I can get it. Bear with. And it is still, you can see, it's still in mock-up stage. Ooh, it takes a long time to get these patterns right. A long time. So this is just a little bit of it. I'll show you a little bit. This is just half of it. Okay, so there'll be another section here. This is like a pocket. Probably guess what it is, but it's you'll have a pattern for it to follow. All sorts of bits. But this is the mock-up, so don't get worried about anything. It'll all become a lot clearer, obviously, when you get the pattern. Yeah, so that's the second project. The third project I'm not going to show you because it's still there. It's actually a really nice, simple, easy project, but incredibly useful, and it's going to be very achievable for you, and it's perfect for Christmas. That is perfect for all year round, what I've just shown you. This third project is perfect for Christmas, but actually any time of the year that you need this particular thing, I'm not going to tell you. Anyway, there we are. So let's have a quick look. So don't change the way you do it, makes it so much more human. We love it. Oh, thank you, Rosemary. I really like the casual format. Do you? I tried to sew along but didn't have ribbon channels ironed and stop stitch. Oh, we'll do it tomorrow, Susie. Oh, that's fantastic. And I know I kind of prepare a little bit and I go quite quickly. Otherwise it would take a couple of hours. Yeah, I think so too, Helen. Love the Facebook Lives, Lizzie. I wouldn't ever stop doing these. This is really important to me, okay? And I'm glad that you all love it. I had the most amazing compliment from Eileen today, and thank you so much, Eileen. It's just super. So look, I'm going to leave it as there because we're already at 12 minutes past the hour, if you like, plus that little bit we did before. Hopefully all of that has made sense. Please, please, please ask me questions if you're at all worried about anything, if you need me to go over anything again. But just look back at the Facebook Live, it'll always be there. Like I say, go to the albums and look for videos, it'll always be there. And enjoy making it. Get some lovely fabrics. I quite like how this tilde looks. And yeah, I reckon you could make a few of these for Christmas, couldn't you? Be really nice. I just love drawing it up. Anyway, have a lovely rest of your evening. I'm just going to have a nice gin and tonic. And I will speak to you again over the next few days. Ever so busy at work on Sunday, but I'll make some time for you in the early part of the week next week. And of course we'll do a Facebook Live next, possibly Thursday, with the Millie bag, which is the gorgeous one with the bows. And I think I've popped it in my box. I've got a massive box of samples now. So yeah, you remember the one. And there's been 1 or 2 made already, so that's super. So next week that'll be that one, and then the last week, if we can fit it in, which I think we can, we'll make Maggie, which is the purse with that interesting centre. And some of you have already made it, and I think you'll realise how easy it is. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Have a lovely evening. I'll speak to you all very, very soon.